course, that presentation of our youth awards. For all of those young youth members out there in the Astronomical League, bear in mind that March 31st is the deadline for being nominated for or applying for our Horkheimer Service Awards, our Horkheimer O'Meara Journalism Award, and our Horkheimer Parker Imaging Awards. These awards bring with them, along with the National Young Astronomer Award, which is open to non-league members as well, produce over $14,500 in prizes to its winners, plus trips in some cases to the national convention. We also have general awards. Those of you who are in the league or in a league club, please consider nominating your newsletter editor for the Mabel Stearns Award, nominating your webmaster for the Webmaster Award. These are national recognitions. We also have a sketching award, and we'll have the Wilhelmina Fleming Imaging Awards for female league members as well again this year. Just as a quick update, the league is now at 25,200 members, the largest that it has ever been in its entire history, 310 societies, and we're doing well at 79 years of age at this point. John Goss, past president of the league and our media officer, will be talking about the Library Telescope program in a few minutes. And I just wanted to emphasize that the deadline for our drawing this year is May 31st. It's usually at the end of June, but we had to move it up because our convention is in June this year. Finally, I'd like to mention again that just one issue, the March issue of Reflector, will be digital only. We're transferring our flag to a different publisher at this point, and this will help us in the transition, and it will also allow us to recoup some overages and expenses that we've had over the last couple of years, and without having to touch any of the interest off of our trust fund. So this should be very helpful to us. Also, don't forget NEAF coming up. It's a fantastic telescope fair that we attend. The league has 2 booths up there for the event. It's going to be held in early April, the first weekend, an opportunity to drool over everything from Teleview eyepieces to Dobsonians to telescopes from the old days, like these Unitrons. So I hope you'll consider joining Carol and Terry and I up at NEAF. We'd love to see you up there. And I'll stop sharing at this point and turn the meeting over to John Goss, past president of the league. John?
Helps if I was paying attention there. Sorry about that. I'd like to cut my presentation a little bit short because we're under some time constraints. But there are a couple of things I'd like to talk about. So I'm going, hopefully I have permission to screen share.
Yes.
Excellent. Good, thank you. Actually, there are 2 things I want to talk about. Chuck was just talking about the Library Telescope program. Over the past 10 years or more, each year we have given away a number of these telescopes to clubs, one from each region and also one to a member at large. I'd like to discuss a little bit what the Library Telescope is for those of you who don't know. It's the idea of clubs donating a small, easy-to-use telescope, small enough to make it very portable, but large enough that you can actually see stuff with it. Idea is to donate it to a library and where the patrons would check it out as they normally do books. And this program has just taken off across the country. There are, I'd say there's well over 1,000 libraries across the country that have these things. This year, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to give away 10 or 11 telescopes, as I just said. However, our telescope of choice was the 4.5-inch Orion Star Blast. You probably know that Orion is no longer with us in the astronomy world, so we're having a tough time finding a suitable replacement. We're working on something, and hopefully that will be resolved in the next few months. So once that's resolved, this program will continue. We are having it this year. We are having it so that the deadline for the drawing or for entering is May 31st. All the information is on our website, which tells you how to do it, fills out a little form. So please, if your club is interested in doing this, please enter. And I'll tell you why. And in a really short paragraph here, I'll tell you why you should do it. Because this really is the perfect club program, club activity. You have a club, you bring on speakers, you do some observing, and you wonder what else could we do? Well, this is something that you can do because this is a program in which um, the club wins, the library patron wins, amateur astronomy wins. It's a multiple win situation. So if you're not doing it now, think about it seriously about doing something like this because it really makes your club more viable. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about. One of the awards that we give is the Horkheimer O'Mara Journalism Award, which Chuck just alluded to. And what it really is an essay contest for kids between 8 and 14 years of age. So if you know somebody who really likes writing, especially if they like astronomy, if they could write a nice science-related topic, preferably on astronomy, and send it in, that would be great. And I know there are a lot of grandparents out there who want to involve their grandkids into this hobby. This is a great way to get them started because it really encourages kids to practice their writing skills and practice their composition and all that stuff. It's a good program to get involved. Now that deadline is March 31st. Go on our league website. You'll be able to find it, and it'll tell you all the details on how to enter and what it's all about, more than what I have just said. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chuck. I may be on again at a later date to talk a little bit more about various topics that you may have known that I like to talk about, which is basically the whole issue of volunteerism and how to make your club go. So Chuck, let me stop sharing and you can have it back.
Okay, thank you so much, John.
Sure.
Next up is my good friend Don Knabb. Don is one of our council members, one of our board members for the Astronomical League, and also a valued participant in not only creating and running the website for the Mideast region of the Astronomical League, but also for our virtual convention that we had back in 2021 due to COVID. Which helped us make that such an incredible success. And so, Don, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, I'm doing a screen share here. Should be coming through. I will go to slideshow. Okay, should be coming through. I'm going to spend just a brief look at the the highlights of what's coming up in the night sky. And going to first recognize John Goss, who makes all these wonderful guides. Every month, he puts these out, multiple a month. The February night sky guide. Here, this month, he put one out to look at Mercury and Venus and the young moon in the evening sky. He put one out about looking at Venus crescent. These are all available free, open for anyone from the AL website. How do you find them? Here's how you find them. Go to the Astronomical League website. From there, you would roll all the way to the bottom of the page. And then you scroll up until you get to navigating the night sky. And here are all the night sky tools. And this is everything you can look for here. The poke around the site. There's many, many night sky tools available here. So take advantage of this. They're free for anyone. Use them on, hand them out anywhere you want to everyone you can. Take a little closer look at this one, which is the navigating the February night sky that John does. And it's more than just a sky map. What John does here is walks us around the sky. So if you find he says, first of all, everyone can find the Big Dipper. So step one, find the North Star. So even beginners can get their orientation to the night sky. Then he says, turn around, look south, and then look straight up overhead. You're going to find Capella. From Capella, you can make a leap to Perseus. another leaf Cassiopeia. From Capella, the other direction, you can find Castor and Pollux, and this time of year, we'll find Mars. Then the next step he does go straight south of Capella. You will find Rigel and Betelgeuse in constellation Orion. And you can use those belt stars to go up to Aldebaran and the Pleiades, and the other direction down to the brightest star in the night sky, Sirius. Then beneath that, a great time of the year, being January, February, it's so cold out. Rather than set a telescope up, he has binocular highlights listed here. So, and those are listed as letters. So A is going to be the naked eye finding the Pleiades. Okay, so there's the Pleiades, and beyond that is the double cluster, which he points out here in the middle in this orange circle. From there, you go to westward to the M31, the Orion Nebula. I'm sorry, the Andromeda Galaxy. That's C. And then from D, we go down to the Orion Nebula, and then M41 in next to Sirius, and then finally M44. We'll spend another moment on each of these most of these items, but this is a great handout. Give it to your club members, give it to people you see in the street, give it to anybody you can find. Hand these out there. They're an invaluable resource. So lunar highlights this month. The lunar straight wall is on February 6th, one night after the first quarter. It's a great object to see on the moon. You can use it with binoculars. And then also the same night, the moon and the Pleiades are only like a degree away. So that's like 2 full moons. Hard to photograph. I tried to do it last month when the moon actually occulted the Pleiades, and it's tricky to do. I'm not even going to show you my picture. It's so bad. This is a wonderful time of year to see the planets. Through January and February, you can see Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn with the naked eye, and Uranus and Neptune with a telescope or binoculars. Then at the end of the month, February 28th, you can see Mercury. So, and if you look down at your feet, that would count up to, they would see the Earth. You can see all 8 planets. It's going to be tricky to see them all on one night because Mercury doesn't become visible until the very end of the month. And by that time, Saturn and Neptune are probably going to be lost in the glow of the fading sunset. But if you saw all of them but Mercury earlier in the month, you can add Mercury to your list at the end of the month. And here's a great opportunity. If you don't know how to find Neptune, here's a great opportunity. On February 1st, Venus, the crescent moon, and Neptune are all lined up. So you can use this as a guide. And if we zoom in a bit, there'll be a couple stars here. You can start to the moon, star hop over 2 stars and down, and you can find Neptune. So add Neptune to your life list if you haven't seen it yet. Mars is the star of the show right now. It's such a joy to walk outside in the evening, look to the east to see Venus, look straight up to see Jupiter. I'm sorry, west to see Venus, straight up to see Jupiter, and to the east to see Mars. Mars is shining like a red beacon there in the eastern sky. So easy to find. Once you can find, as we walk through the night sky guide that John made, you can find Orion. Just head over to the twins, Castor and Pollux, and you'll no mistaking that bright red Mars next to Castor and Pollux. So I like to look at a lot of naked eye things during this time of the year. One of my favorites is the winter triangle, and that you can find from Sirius, Betelgeuse, Procyon. Beautiful big triangle in the sky. The summer triangle is fun, but that's gone until a couple months from now. So here's the winter triangle. And probably the biggest asterism that I know of is the winter hexagon. It's similar to the winter triangle, but you would start up at Capella, down to Pollux, down to Procyon, down to Sirius, up to Rigel, Aldebaran, and back to Capella. I can't think of any asterism that takes up a larger section of sky than this. So it's a fun thing to point out to your friends and neighbors. One of the things you will see up there, a nice huge open cluster, is the Alpha Persei cluster. It's like multiple full moons in width. Okay, and you can see that using the map that we saw earlier. We found Capella and just leaped away to find Perseus. Oops. And yeah, this is the cluster, the Alpha Persei cluster. Right in the middle is Murphak, a nice bright star. M44, another one that was mentioned in on this nice sky guide that John made, and that is to find the Beehive cluster. Cancer is a very dim constellation, a little tricky to find, but with binoculars you'll easily find it. Go to Castor and Pollux and go south. Go down from there. It's a great thing at star parties. This is what a professional photograph would look like of the Beehive. This is more like what you might see with your own binoculars or telescope. Not quite as colorful, not quite as rich a field, but unmistakable. And this is a great thing to show people at spring star parties because they can't believe they can barely see the cluster in the sky and it's just full of stars. Another one that I really like is M41. This is the little Beehive. M44 is the main Beehive. This is the little Beehive. And Walter Scott Houston, he wrote for many, many years, Deep Sky Wonders and Sky and Telescope. And he talks about visual observers seeing curved lines in M41. And on photographs, they don't really show up, but he's saying in his 10-inch reflector, he could see the bright red star and these curves. So there's M41 in Canis Major, the big dog. So Orion is just overhead. You just go south, go toward the horizon, see Sirius. There's M41, a great binocular object. This would be a professional photograph of it. More likely, this is what you're going to see in your telescope and binoculars. But it's you say, there's the red star, there's the red giant. You sort of see some of these curves that he was talking about. So better viewed through the binoculars and the telescope than in photographs. And then when you're in the neighborhood of M41, not far away is 3 other open clusters, binocular or telescope objects. M47, a nice open cluster. M46, probably a little more dense, must be further away, much more active, more dense cluster. And I'm not sure if it's going to show up on your screen, but there's a little interesting object here. And what that is a planetary nebula. So this would be more for advanced observers with maybe a little better telescope to pick up NGC 2438. But probably need a telescope to see this. You're not going to see this in binoculars, but that would be more for an advanced observer. So how else can you find things in the sky? 2 other resources I'll show beyond what the Astronomical League offers, and that's skymaps.com. Every month, there's a new map put out. It goes through the calendar month, through the day by day for the month, and then lists also naked eye, binocular, and telescopic objects. Every month, downloaded for free. Another one I really like is What's Out Tonight. It doesn't have a day by day, but it does list the most significant things that you can observe. So and some extra information, but also at what's just do a Google search for What's Out Tonight. It'll show up. So get on some warm clothes and get out there and see the sky. Okay, back to you, Chuck.
Thank you so much, Don. Great job, as always. Really appreciate your bringing everybody up to date. Well, now we come to our talk, and I'm going to slightly abbreviate the bio here because it's quite impressive, but we do have limited time, so I want to introduce our speaker tonight, Laurie Ansorge. She's a lifelong photographer and amateur astronomer with degrees in photography, business management, and project management. She's a lifetime member of the Astronomical League and the Girl Scouts USA. She's part of NASA partner programs, including Girl Scout Stars, Eclipse Ambassadors, and Eclipse Stars. She led the fall 2018 Girl Scout team that won the 2019 Astronomy Day Award through the Astronomical League, and again in 2024 with the Westminster Astronomical Society. She learned about the League in 2017 through participation in the astronomy camp for Girl Scout leaders, and has since completed over 35 of the League's observing programs and challenges, which is impressive. She achieved the Astronomical League's Master Outreach Award for all of her endeavors in public education and astronomy, and is currently a Girl Scout volunteer educator. She's treasurer of the Westminster Astronomical Society, where she leads and aids many events, and periodically does planetarium shows as well. She's also a member of the Tri-State Astronomers. Laurie's been a beta tester for the Night Sky Network and is a volunteer beta tester for unistellar electronic telescopes. She's now retired in Maryland, so we can tap her more and more for astronomical activities with the League. She lives at home with her husband, Al, and 3 spoiled rescue kitties, I'm told. She's a gardener, a quilter, a citizen scientist, and a former elected town councilor. So I'd like to introduce my friend, Laurie Ansorge, who's going to talk to us tonight about perhaps how to handle audio problems on League Live programs.
Well, if there's any one way to jinx a program that's electronically delivered, it's to name it that in the computer age. I guess you never tell an actor to have a good show. You want to say break a leg for that reason. Okay, so I'm going to share a screen here. And I'm going to open up. So I will take the hit for the title jinxing us tonight. Amateur astronomy in the computer age. But it's also observing in the computer age, tooling up our observations. I want to thank the League for inviting me to speak tonight. I know that we have some time constraints. Sorry, we had a delayed start, so I'm going to jump right in. So like many people, I have started off with paper logs for doing my observations. My husband and I got a 8-inch Newtonian. We learned how to star hop. We didn't have any tracking on it, and it was fun. It was also very slow. This is an example page from an early log, and I found myself going to the internet and clipping out pictures of things like M64 and M3 and using my glue stick to put it in there so that I had a visual, because I have a photography background, of what it is that I saw that night. And then the point and shoot cameras got a lot smarter. So here's Comet Neowise from 2020, and then a little bit of the paint program, and I could point out the Bear constellation Ursa Major and where Neowise was in relation. And kind of hand holding a cell phone could log that picture as well. Still not greatly satisfying. So we delve into a little bit of DSLR work, and of course caught the outreach addiction bug and put together all these great pieces of metal onto our Newtonian and learned about tracking. Was real excited when we got this free adapter that could make the whole thing work. And oh my gosh, took the plunge into this thing called astrophotography. Even found this Revolution 2 imager, and that came in handy during COVID because we needed hands off for everything, especially dealing with young students coming to the eyepiece and no touch for this and that. And so we kept trying, and we kept hearing people say, imaging is imaging. No. So we kind of had to make a decision after playing with this thing called processing and using software to try and make images come out. Do we want to be like Hubble, or do we just want to see things better? Well, along my path, I did learn that there's lots of stuff on the internet that'll teach you lots of things about astrophotography. And Astro Backyard's just one. Not saying they're the best, but they're just one. By the way, in this presentation in the background, I am offering up some of the images that I've captured over time. And in the lower left corner, you'll see which scope and which object it is. So a little bit of eye candy as we go. So imaging is not necessarily imaging. There's this other branch called electronically assisted astronomy. And what that is a form of observational astronomy with a telescope that uses a camera instead of an eyepiece, but sometimes has an eyepiece as well. And what it does is it captures a sequence of short exposures and processes the images in near real time on a connected screen. And it differs from normal observing since you're viewing it on the screen. So you get the term electronically enhanced visual astronomy or observational astrophotography. So this is actually a hybrid from a form of astronomy and astrophotography. This observational astrophotography is a separate pursuit. A lot of people kind of bunch it together, and I really am seeing this niche in this computer age coming together that is really important. With this technique, you get an image quickly, less time than the astrophotography and the processing and all that stuff that you need to do to get those exquisite pieces of art. My hat's off to people that can do that and have the patience. Core difference is that this EAA is primarily a form of observing, not necessarily imaging. So it is an image, but it's not with all of the fancy frills that you see with the Hubble-like images. And in the background here, you can see two images of two different comets that were taken through this method. So for EAA, or electronically assisted astronomy, you really need to have a camera, a telescope, a mount, and a laptop with software. This is really going to become more and more commonplace too, as light pollution becomes a greater problem and people take one of many paths. We've got a couple members in the club that have put together some amazing pieces of equipment that you wouldn't think would normally come together and are providing outstanding outreach by employing just these simple tools, camera, telescope, mount, laptop, together to get an image that really is wowing the public when they come to an eyepiece. And we're having to explain to them too what they're seeing. So one of the advantages of electronically assisted astronomy is that it can be anywhere. It can be your cell phone, so it's not doing anything with stacking. It could be reuse of that existing equipment I just mentioned. And it can also be used to study an object later, more like you see the professional astronomers doing it. So in the background, you see here, I've got a picture of the Rosetta Nebula. So at an eyepiece, I see one thing. Looking at the Hubble images, I see another thing. This image shows me what I saw that night with the atmospheric conditions, with the information that I recorded for that site. I can come back to it time and time again and study it. It's my image of what I saw that night, basically. So on the scene now, we have lots of these electronically assisted astronomy telescopes, or these all-in-ones. Many of you probably have seen some of these on the market. Some are newer and some not so new, and all of them are updating and improving their applications and really going after folks that just want to see things that they're looking at. These all-in-ones have the camera, have the telescope, have the software, have the computer, all in one unit, and is generally controlled by a cell phone. So, where do these all-in-one scopes fall in astrophotography? Well, there's a number of categories of astrophotography, but they're really in that electronically assisted astronomy category that I was just talking about. Helps you see the real-time images, just like when you're in outreach and you want to show the public something. The ones that have an eyepiece are actually a preference for the public. The public coming up to your scope, they want to see things through an eyepiece. They've left their living room for the night, and that's what they've come to do. It's interesting because the scopes that we've had out that don't have that eyepiece, that just have a computer screen or a cell phone, while the objects are interesting to look at, they keep coming back to the eyepieces. Very interesting phenomenon. With the EAA, you have image sharing, and you can compare your images across different dates, sites, and conditions of the sky. Particularly interesting when you have something like our closest or star, our sun. In this particular instance, I'm showing some sunspots in the background on this image. So EAA for me opened up doors dramatically. My first scope with this was the Unistellar EV2 scope, and it can see objects that are an area of the sky about the sun or the full moon. And the battery life on it's about 8 or 10 hours. That's an image of M27 in the background. And the way it gets controlled is through screens on an app on your phone. The EV2 has a manual focus. I also beta test the Odyssey Pro, and it has an autofocus. Both have an eyepiece. With a batten-off screen, you can focus it using these lines that appear. And adjusting the exposure allows you to then get that little circle in the middle to fine-tune your exposure. One of the things that Unistellar's done is they allow you to save your image in the catalog of objects that you have. So once you've seen it, like the Flame Nebula here, it saves that image in your catalog so you can come back to it. It gives you a 50 times magnification on your cell phone. However, your cell phone, you can blow up those images with your 2 fingers and make it up to 400 times. So you can really zoom in to find those teeny tiny little objects like the smoke ring in M46. I've also had to get into the Celestron Origin, which is also cell phone generated. This too is a product that was built from the ground up by Celestron. They built it from the background of a very large company. Unistellar did it as a kickstart. They have 2 different kinds of approaches, and they are good for different kinds of objects. The cell phone screens for the Celestron Origin are a little reminiscent to some of the controls that you might expect to find in astrophotography. So you have a telescope fan. You also have a dew heater built in. You have some denoising, and it does all the stacking within the computer telescope itself. It's also using what I'm told is the Sky Safari, which is a Mac product for their catalog for finding things in the sky. But it's a pictorial kind of a way to look for things. So it's really giving you a view that's a lot closer to what you would expect an amateur astronomer to be looking for when they're looking for things in the sky. Whereas with the Unistellar screens, it's really catering, it appears to me, more to those who are buying a telescope and just want to know what's up and not necessarily where it's at. Although, if you learn your sky, of course, it's always going to be to your benefit in terms of knowing where to look for the kinds of things you want to see. In terms of outreach, we have this little sign that we put up for the Unistellar, letting folks know how to download the app and that they can save the pictures as a souvenir of their outreach experience. That is also a capability that the Origin from Celestron has. But here's a really exciting offshoot from this whole path here, and where we really get into the title, which jinxed us tonight, of astronomy, amateur astronomy in the computer age. And that is the participatory citizen science aspect. And in the background, I'm beginning to show you some images here from that celestron origin. And there's lots of technical reasons for why it comes across as crisper and sharper stars. I won't get into that tonight. But let me tell you a little bit about the amateur astronomy piece here in terms of the whole citizen science and computer age. So we still have amateur astronomers who are discovering comets. You can be your own David Levy. You'll probably never discover as many as he has. But in 2023, there was this Japanese astronomer, amateur astronomer, who found this comet named after him with his DSLR and 200 millimeter lens. I mean, how exciting is that? So I went out with my little EAA type scope and I tried to catch this comet. There are limitations with these EAA all-in-one scopes, as you would expect. I mean, you want to get the right tool for the job, and sometimes the pliers will put the nail in the wall, but maybe not the way you want it to go in. So this little tiny picture here shows the part of the comet that I could get through several attempts to manually slew it and catch an image and check to see that I've got it in the pre-dawn hours before the sun finally blocked me out with this EAA scope. Real exciting to try and do that and capture it. There's also citizen science that really doesn't require any equipment at all, but because we're in the computer age, it's something that kids and adults can do from their home. You go outside, you look up at the sky at the particular constellations that globeatnight.org has listed for their campaigns, which is about a week per month, and take a look at the images to see how many of the stars of that constellation you see in that sky. You click on it, and that data gets crowdsourced to help us understand light pollution, which affects wildlife, your health, as well as astronomy for everybody everywhere. They find that actually those light levels are a lot more accurate when they are measured from the ground up as opposed to from satellites down. So this is my PSA to everybody to please participate in Globe at Night. It costs nothing, but it's a way to participate in citizen science, but without any equipment. And by the way, there are citizen science certificates that you can earn through the Astronomical League. Just look at the observing programs on the website. So EAA with Unistellar has programs for citizen science as well. So right in the app, they have comet programs, near-Earth object planetary defense programs, and exoplanet programs, satellite programs, all of these things that users can participate in. Real science. This stuff actually gets used and directly is contributing to science. So, for example, the DART mission, where we, as humanity, got to strike an asteroid, there were unistellar users on the ground who captured images and were able to share those with the scientists. And now the paper is published in the prestigious academic journal Nature. So there's a lot of different citizen science programs that with an EAA scope or equipment, you can participate in. So EAA to me allows more time to spend with objects and be able to revisit them many times. I know that my image of the Crescent Nebula here isn't the best image of the Crescent Nebula from Earth or from Hubble or James Webb. But I have a lot of them now. This one's with an L-Pro filter using my Celestron origin. And I can look at this image and other images with different filters on them to really study what makes up the gases and the parts of this nebula to understand where it came from. Another great feature for EAA is watching in real time the effect of image stacking. And image stacking is where in your scope, for example, with the unistellar, it takes 4-second exposures and it glues them together through the magic of computers. And you can watch it build up to show you details. So from left to right, 2 rows here, I go from 110 seconds to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes, to 15, 25, and 30, where you can see more and more of the nebulosity appearing in the frame. So part of the pros of this is it's all in one, and the exposure and contrast is adjustable. And of course, longer observing means more detail, but the limits for this scope is that you get diminishing returns after about 20 or 30 minutes. It's not really geared for double star observing, and it's a little less flexible and noisier than astrophotography. The Celestron will give you 10-second exposures, and that's what gives you more of that really crisp, kind of less noisy image that's coming up there. So, got to put in a plug for my favorite Astronomical League here. We've got the nice website here, and you can search for awards once you earn them under award search. But within the past year and a half or so, they have opened up the programs, the observing programs, to EAA and imaging. Yay. I'm very proud of these guys. They listened to what folks had to say, and they listened to the write-ups that you do for if you have a program suggestion. And as a result, I got the imaging for Messier #1 pin that I'm very proud of. And I'm very proud that it helped open up the door for some of this stuff. Caveat here is you must read the program and challenge requirements very carefully, because they are a little different for imaging versus the visual. And that's fine, because they are different branches of the tree, and you're going to learn something no matter which programs that you choose. I also have to put in a plug for the current Astronomical League Challenge, which has to deal with the year-long anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope, 35th anniversary. And each month, there's still time to do it for January, there is a short list of objects to go out and see. And you can either sketch them or you can image them. And here I'm providing an example of a submission done, of a page from a submission done for January that uses EAA. Basically in the program, they're having you go to the Hubble website and download a picture of what Hubble saw, and then take your binoculars or telescope or image and compare that to what you saw through your image or your drawing. Here I've got my unistellar, and then I've also got my Celestron origin. And I have put a box around the section of the image that is the same as the one that's on the Hubble website. Very fun. I didn't realize how fun until I got to the comparison part. I strongly urge folks to give it a shot. With every challenge, again, read the particulars, because there's usually some component that has to do with outreach and what fun it is actually to share in that way. Other programs I've been able to do with EAA, you take the information that they provide you for what an object is, and you fill out your observing report, basically. In this particular program, in the interest of telling a good story, my night of observation ended because at 1:30 in the morning, the medevac helicopter needed the soccer field more than I did. And luckily, I'm pretty compact and I had everything in my bag and was ready to flee out the corner when the firemen had come running over to help me clear the way for the helicopter. So it's always fun doing observations. You never know what's going to happen. And in this particular example, again, EAA to complete a program, there's some very, very tiny, obscure globular clusters that I had captured images of. And in this particular case, I really had to go and compare to the web and make sure I had it. What I didn't know was that the program coordinator for globular clusters pointed out that there were 3 that I had captured, these 3 here, that in his 12 years of being a coordinator, nobody else had tried or done or put into a submission. So I chalked that up to using the EAA type technology. That was really exciting. And if anybody's wondering what this blue is here, I go out on moonlit nights too, and that's a little bit of that moonlight creeping in there, but I got the globular cluster. So now for a little bit of eye candy here, just to give you a sense of what some of these scopes will do. So these are from the Unistellar product. On different nights, you can see that we've got the Trifid Nebula on the right and Sombrero on the left. Very important to note, too, that there's no substitution for seeing and transparency. If your skies are very turbulent and you got a lot of upper level clouds, you're going to have more bloated stars, whether you're perfectly collimated or not. A couple more examples. I can tell you that in the EAA that I have done, that these shorter exposures work better for star clusters. The longer ones work better for nebula, and a lot of times you got to tool back some of the build up your exposure time and cut back some of your background, making it a little noisier to get some of that to come out. Not Hubble, but lots of fun to do. And then there was news that there would be a green comet. And my sister club, Tri-State, that we hadn't joined yet, and I told them that night, I guess I better join so y'all don't throw me off of the outreach field. I knew that they were having outreach for this comet, and I knew that their ginormous telescopes were going to be pointed at it. And I knew that I could be of help to the public with my Unistellar. So it was cold as all get out that January January of 2022. And I set my scope down. And before I knew it, some of the folks with those ginormous scopes were sending the public over to my scope because they were having such a hard time to see the comet. And I didn't realize what a line I ended up with. But everybody had fun, and that club ended up getting an EAA scope not long after that with a grant. This is probably also the only scope I've ever run across that has a cloud filter. Doesn't everybody in astronomy want that? Well, through the magic of computers and the stacking of multiple images, I did manage to capture in the suburbs, and I do mean like the edge of Baltimore, this pinwheel galaxy. And literally, the only thing we could see that night was 5 stars. We counted them. There were other scopes out there. There were only 5 stars. But through the muck, we caught some pinwheel. Would we ever want to put this image into a competition or compare it to Hubble? Maybe not. No, definitely not. But the folks that came to that star party got to see a galaxy, and they were excited, and so were we. So think, has anybody through visual astronomy seen the Horsehead Nebula through an eyepiece? Okay. If you have an aperture of less than 12 inches, have you? Okay. Well, good for you if you have. But this is seeing the Horsehead with about 5 minutes, no post-processing. Yes, I tweaked the exposure quite a bit. really bumped up the noise so that I could see the horse head. And to this day, it's the only scope that I own that I've been able to see it in. Is it the best? Nope, but I've been able to see it. Other drawbacks are these things are very susceptible to movement. So you can see that there are star trails here, which typically happens from the wind or people bumping their head into your scope at a star party. It happens. Those hat brims will get it. And the other thing it will do because of this cloud filter is once I got it locked into the sun for the total eclipse in Texas in April, it stayed tracking. And so we actually, as the clouds parted a little bit, got to see some flares and stuff, which tickled me. I was just glad to be there, but now I've got a souvenir forever. And then there's some little challenges people can try with their EAA technology. So I was told, hey, M33, which is the Hercules cluster, has a propeller in it. It does. So I took the teeny tiny little entry-level Odyssey Pro, put it on it, and again, tweaked the exposure a little bit, and I got me a propeller. You can see that little bit there. So here's just some time lapse of the Owl Nebula emerging. Give it a little more time. You can get more of the nebulosity to come up. A couple more sample images of globular clusters. And you can also wonk things out a lot. This is, again, not something that I would want to submit for any kind of competition, but if what I want to do is see the Eastern and Western Veil Nebula, I can do it by cranking up that exposure to bring out the nebulosity. And on better nights, we've actually done a little better. So through all this work and tens of thousands of images with these scopes in a very short time, and talking to Unistellar about not so great app release that came out a couple years ago, I said, you know, are you guys testing this stuff before you put it on market? And on my way to the October eclipse, I got a phone call from France. You're in. You're a beta tester. Can we send you a scope? Okay. So even though I'd retired from implementation of applications in IT and whatnot, I guess we never really retire from that. So I'm proud to say that myself and many others globally have participated now in making sure that these things get tested better before they go to market. But I keep learning and growing too. There's always room for improvement, right? And I mentioned before, there's no substitute for sky quality. Go into those dark skies and still skies. I know I've got to also work on upgrading my observational database, gain some more proficiency in post-processing. And while I have a lot of programs and challenges completed, I've also started on no less than 18 of them that are ongoing because they're fun. Sometimes I want to look at planetary nebula, and other times I want to look at alternate constellations. So with that, I'm going to pause and ask if there's any questions in the chat anywhere.
I know of one question, Laurie, if I can relay it to you. How does it do with, say, galaxies in the 12 and 13 magnitude range, maybe 14? Have you tried that?
I have. I can tell you that the limiting magnitude is about 17 on the Unistellar, maybe 15 or 16 on the Origin, and there is a very faint object close to the Ring Nebula that is supposed to be like a 14 or 15. Too bad I didn't put that in this slideshow, but a friend of mine who just finished all 2400 Herschels pointed it out to me in an image. He goes, I've only ever seen this once or twice from my 22-inch. Do you realize that this is like a 14 or 15 magnitude? No, but I do know now. So it does a remarkable job on those really dim galaxies.
Yeah. And also, are there formats for the Unistellar where you do not have the circle with the logo on it?
Yes. In fact, you can set it so that it takes an image with and without. And I am looking at my deck here to see if I have any. This one is without the circle. This is actually taken with the Odyssey Pro. And they have in the latest application something called VVT, which is something to do with being vivid. Sorry, I don't have that. And it spread out more of the colors. It's a little bit of, some people think of it as more cartoony. Some think of it as more flashy. A lot of people love the color, but this is one without that ring around it.
And you said the limiting magnitude of the origin was lower or less than?
Just a little, yes.
Even despite the increased aperture?
Yes, it is a 6.5 inch. Let me see if I had that on this slide. I did not put that on this slide. And in the interest of time, I did.
Oh, that's fine. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Scott, are there any questions that have come in on the chat that you can see?
There's one question out there. How, these smart scopes are very interesting. In fact, I just sold one about an hour and a half ago, to a gentleman who came in, was looking for something for his wife that was very interested in astronomy, a total newbie, it's been my experience that these work out very well for someone completely uninitiated. What's your experience?
Yes, they can. There is still no substitute for learning the sky. For example, you turn on something like a unistellar or a sea star and you want to see the Ring Nebula. That's going to be real tough if Lyra has set for the night. Sometimes scopes like the Unistellar will just have it grayed out. And then if you want to go to another object, you actually have to tell the Unistellar, okay, show me stuff that is close to where I'm at. So you could spend a lot of time going back and forth, burning up battery time. But for folks who've never done it before, plug it in, use it. I can definitely see where they would be very pleased too.
Very good. We have someone watching on Twitter, and their question is, could you stack pictures from a cluster of these telescopes? That's a very interesting concept.
Yes. So in the case
that can be done?
Yes, in the case of Unistellar, they worked very long and hard, but now you have the capability of downloading your own set of the TIFFs or RAWs. And you can, and people do their own post-processing on their computer from those. And Celestron has the capability of putting a USB drive into the machine itself and downloading them that way. Okay. So anytime you've got your TIFFs or RAWs, you can definitely take those and do post-processing.
So let's say that you have one of these, I have one, and Chuck has one, and we're all imaging the same thing. And maybe we have different filters attached to the scopes, because I know you can attach filters. Could we take all of our images and then stack them or adjust them in post?
I would think so, since in the post-processing software, with my limited experience, is that it's lining up the star fields. Yeah. So if you're at the same place, it should in theory work.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay.
Okay. Well, Scott, thank you again for hosting us. Laurie, that was a fantastic talk. Really, really fascinating. And really appreciate your joining us today. And
my honor.
If you want to be around 25,000 people like Laurie who know the ropes to help you get started in amateur astronomy, please consider joining the league. You can do it as an individual or through a league club, and we'll be happy to help you any way we can. Scott, thank you very much, and good night, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah. I do want to add that Terry Mann was there in the background watching the program, and she said, can I mention that Tom Reinert from Dark Sky, IDA, International Dark Sky, or Dark Sky International as it's now called, will be the speaker on February 7th. His title will be 10 Illusions of the Night Sky. Well, there we go. So if you enjoyed this program, and I'm sure that you did, I know I did, you should consider joining the Astronomical League if you're not already a member. Now, you can join by attaching yourself as a member to one of their over 300 clubs, or you can become a member at large, and all you have to do is go to astroleague.org and hit the join button. So I want to thank you again, Chuck and Laurie, and our viewing audience. Thanks for also letting us work through some of our technical difficulties today. That sometimes happens. As always, we want to remind you about the upcoming Global Star Party that's also co-hosted by the Astronomical League. That will be next Tuesday on the 28th, and our special, we always have somebody special that hasn't been on before, and this time it's and I always mess up his last name. I'm sorry if you know it well, but it's Brother Guy Consolmagno, I believe is how it's pronounced. He is the chief astronomer for the Vatican Observatory, and he's going to be on starting at 8:30 p.m. on January 28th, right here on these channels that you're watching. So you don't want to miss that. Everyone, keep looking up, and thanks again for tuning in to the Astronomical League Live.
Although the moon is a relatively primitive body, geologically, its arrested development provides insights into the early evolution of other rocky bodies like Venus, Earth, and Mars. The Lunar Magnetotelluric Sounder is a geophysical instrument designed to probe the moon's deep interior and provide new information on the structure and geological evolution of our companion world. Signals that we're looking at from the solar wind and the Earth's magnetosphere have frequencies that are way below what you might be familiar with as radio waves. These signals take minutes or even hours to complete a single cycle. The benefit of these very low frequency signals is that they penetrate deeply into the moon. This allows us to determine the temperature and composition of the interior of the moon. The magnetic fields are measured by a magnetometer. The electric fields are measured between 4 probes that are deployed at 90-degree angles around the lander. LMS will be among the first geophysical measurements to assess interior properties of the moon since Apollo. LMS is both simpler to operate and has better performance than these Apollo-era experiments. Its demonstration paves the way for an even better version on a later CLIPS mission, as well as opportunities for other worlds, including Mars. Our team at Southwest Research Institute, Heliospace Corporation, and NASA Goddard all contributed to this first extraterrestrial magnetotelluric measurement. Commercial lunar payload services, NASA and American companies working together.